round of applause, but I can't. You're so slow. I'm not impressed.
Get as close as you dare to the world's fastest carnivore, Cheetah Run, always included at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. And before your visit, don't forget to download the free Safari Park app.
At the starting line, event number 14. Correct. You want me to just start once they start to do that? Okay. Event number 14 is now at the starting line. That's the Women's Collegiate 4 with coxswain, A. Lane 1, University of Virginia. Lane 2, UCLA. Lane 3, Washington State University. 4, University of Iowa. 5, University of British Columbia. 6, Old Dominion University. Lane 7, St. Joseph's University. Still very calm down here. Very fair conditions for all 7 crews as we await the start. The aligner's flag is up, and we wait for the momentary pulling of the crews. You might hear it in the background. The official will
Virginia.
Say Virginia, which he's done right now. UCLA, here we go.
Washington State. Iowa. British Columbia.
All the bow
Old Dominion.
person's hands are down.
St. Joseph.
So we're ready to go.
Attention.
Attention.
Go.
There's the start. Race number 14, Women's Collegiate 4 with coxswain. All the boats have a coxswain, of course, and the traditional coxswain sits in the stern, and the only person that has that is University of British Columbia. The rest, the coxswain is lying down in the bow, kind of in your Formula One position. All right, we're away from the start, and your early race leader in lane 1 is the University of Virginia, followed by UCLA in 2, very closely contested by University of Washington State University, pretty much following the lane assignments, then Iowa, and then we'll skip over to Old Dominion in that 5th spot. 6 goes to St. Joseph, and the crew trailing is University of British Columbia. 400 meters into the race now, the Cavaliers in lane 1. Your race leader now by about a boat length over UCLA. And UCLA and Washington State tied in a pretty good battle for that 2nd spot. But the Bruins have about a 2-seat advantage right now. 3rd position going to the University of Iowa. Then outside, Old Dominion putting on quite a burst here, trying to come up into that first 4 positions, followed by St. Joseph, and then University of British Columbia trails. So at 500 meters, your race leader, lane number 1, University of Virginia, followed by UCLA in lane 2. Then it's Washington State in 3. Then Iowa is in 4. Then Old Dominion, St. Joseph, and then University of British Columbia. That's the call. 600 meters done.
Women's Collegiate 4 with coxswain. This is the first in this series. And we have 7 crews here with Virginia in lane number 1. They are on the lead. UCLA in lane number 2. Washington State is out there in lane 3. And in lane 4, Iowa. University of British Columbia in 5. Old Dominion in 6. And St. Joseph's University in 7th position.
This is a recent event added to the Crew Classic, which has traditionally been a regatta for 8s only. However, for the Crew Classic to be counted, each of these crews has to submit a certain number of results to be considered for the NCAA. And for the Crew Classic, which is one of the premier events in the country, to actually be included in these results counting, the entire team has to race. And for Division I, that is the first 8, the second varsity 8, and the 4. So the Crew Classic did add the 4 in so that this event could be a counter event for the NCAA Challenge.
Virginia continues on the lead, and they are fighting off UCLA on their outside shoulder. Washington State and Iowa, lanes 1, 2, 3, and 4, basically how it's shaping up right now, with Old Dominion on the outside with open water back, and then University of British Columbia and St. Joseph's. Approaching 1,000 meters into our race, and it continues to be lane 1, 2, 3, 4 in positions 1, 2, 3, 4, Virginia, UCLA, Washington State, and Iowa. And then we have some open water back to Old Dominion. And then some, well, actually, Old Dominion and St. Joseph's relatively close together, and then quite a bit of open water back to the University of British Columbia.
Yes, it's pretty hard to know the form of these crews because a lot of it depends on how deep the squad is. The 4 would probably be, in most cases, the third boat selected by the coach, and but the depth of your team is really quite important for getting that NCAA bid. So we don't have the form on them, but it's good to know that it's kind of following the rankings.
Everything's staying pretty much status quo right now, with Virginia being challenged now a little bit by UCLA as they come through the Ingraham Street Bridge area. UCLA has fought back into the picture, and on the outside shoulder of UCLA is Washington State, and then Iowa has faded just a little bit, and they're now actually being challenged on the far outside by Old Dominion and St. Joseph's, with University of British Columbia trailing by quite a bit. But UCLA has gotten back into it against Virginia. UCLA in lane number 2 now edging slightly ahead of Virginia in this race. Approaching 500 meters left to go. It is UCLA have a slight strokes per minute lead over Virginia, and that has translated into a water lead over them. And then outside, Washington State. And then to the far outside, looks like Old Dominion St. Joseph's have begun to make a run on Iowa, with UBC trailing. UCLA on the run. They made a move just about 1,250 meters into this race, and it paid off for them, as they have now edged into that first position, with Virginia in second spot. Out to lane number 3, it is Washington State actually in the third position. And then all the way outside, looks like Old Dominion has taken the measure of Iowa to this point. And on the far outside, St. Joseph's, and then University of British Columbia. Washington State has picked up the stroke and has gone to 38 now in a desperate attempt to overtake or close some water here, but it looks like it might be too little too late, as UCLA making an outstanding move at about 1,400 meters, and they are moving along the shoreline in that second position, and they have open water back to Virginia. Then it's open water back to Washington State. Old Dominion is cruising along into that fourth position, with Iowa now being challenged on the outside by St. Joseph's, and University of British Columbia trailing by quite a bit. Back to our leaders. UCLA has responded to Virginia throwing their stroke count up, and continue to hang on to the lead, and are approaching that finish line, and will apparently be our unofficial leader, UCLA, followed by Virginia, open water back to Washington State. And then we've got a little run at each other out here between Iowa and Old Dominion. Every position counts overall, and Old Dominion on the outside looks like they may hang on against Iowa, making a little bit of a charge there in that position. Iowa desperately trying to catch up, kicked it up to 41, but they will not be able to overtake Old Dominion. And then St. Joseph's on the far outside, and University of British Columbia, once again unofficially, UCLA, Virginia, Washington State, Old Dominion, Iowa, St. Joseph's, and the University of British Columbia. Stop by the Concept 2 CTS tent to try the ski erg. It's a great new way to train whatever sport you're into and improve your fitness with the Concept 2 ski erg. 30 minutes after each race, stop by the merchandise tent and pick up a DVD copy